the reality of the circumstance is that most Palestinians, if not almost all Palestinians, regardless of whether they've done a severe injustice, a severe crime or not, are technically still being unlawfully kept under indefinite detention. One thing you can't say about Bradley Martin is that he's not strong. He 100% is strong. He is incredibly strong. He's done so much he's done an insane amount of steroids, okay?
This is an NBC News special report. Here's Lester Holt.
Good morning, everyone.
I don't know why this is like broken my brain. SNL's broken my brain. When I hear this song, I think it's like a parody always. All right, we're going to talk about how Israel and Hamas have agreed to extend the truce by 2 days.
Coming on the air with breaking news in the Middle East, where we just learned an agreement has been reached to extend the temporary ceasefire between Israel and Hamas for 2 days. This news comes as we wait for a fourth group of hostages that is expected to be released today. The extension also comes just hours before the truce was supposed to expire at 5 p.m. Eastern time. I want to go right now to NBC's Richard Engel. Richard, a lot we don't know here. Tell us what we do know at this point.
So, Lester, today is day 4 of an agreed upon 4-day truce. And every day since Friday, the Israelis have been releasing Palestinian prisoners in exchange for Hamas releasing hostages, women and children on both sides. And that deal was supposed to expire. It is being brokered by Qatar and Egypt with a lot of support from the United States. And just a short while ago, Hamas made an announcement, also an Egyptian official and a Qatari official, all saying that they had agreed to 2 more days. So that could potentially allow Hamas to free more hostages who are currently held in Gaza. They still have more women and children to free, and allow the Israelis to release more Palestinian prisoners, also women and minors. The larger picture is that this is a sign of progress. It shows that this 4-day truce, and the idea was once it ended, the hostilities would resume immediately, and that Israel's offensive would immediately resume. Now it does seem that this 4-day truce, which seems to be becoming a 6-day truce, that is the most encouraging sign, or among the most encouraging signs we've seen since this conflict began.
Yeah, Richard, do we know what the holdup is, though, with the releases today, the part of the original agreement, the truce agreement?
Every day, there has been negotiations going right down to the wire, because a list will be put out. There will be disagreements on the...
Both are captives is bullshit about hostage versus prisoner. I know. We have talked about this quite a bit on the broadcast, but it bears repeating that fundamentally, I know that Israel and Zionists get very upset and believe that a conflation between the hostages on the Hamas side versus the prisoners on the Israeli side is anti-Semitic and dangerous or whatever. But the reality is that, yes, while one is a functional state recognized by the international authorities, it doesn't necessarily mean that Israel follows through on all of the international law that they are supposedly supposed to follow. And yes, many of the Palestinians that Israel apprehends and places under indefinite detention is placed under that indefinite detention under circumstances that you would never actually consider to be valid and just. No due process whatsoever, oftentimes using what is called secret evidence, very little legal recourse, conducted under a military tribunal, a military court rather than a civil court, where there is a 99.7% clearance rate, 99.7% conviction rate. These people don't get a real trial. They get a sham trial. And oftentimes, well, oh my God, the fucking the landscapers are going nutty outside my window. Hold on one second.
The list, the Israelis are accusing Hamas justifiably of releasing some people, separating families, not releasing the people they had agreed upon. So there are a lot of terms and names that are being disputed, and the modalities of how these people are supposed to be transported. One time they were transported generally they've been transported out of Egypt. One time, because one of the hostages was sick, they went straight from Gaza to Israel. It is still early enough, so it is in the day, so it is possible we could still see before the end of tonight another release of prisoners, as had been expected. So it is not guaranteed that today there will not be another release, but the fact that the two sides, according to Hamas and two Arab diplomats, have agreed to a 2-day extension does take off some of the pressure.
Yeah. Is trading hostages the only way for innocent Palestinians to be freed from Israeli prisons? I mean, kind of. Yeah. Which is a very dangerous precedent to set that basically goads the Palestinian side to be like, yeah, you have to kidnap more people so that we'll release some of these people in our prisons. But the difference, however, is that on the Israeli side, there's a narrative you must uphold. Okay? There is a narrative you have to uphold. And that narrative is every single person that was actually imprisoned by Israel is imprisoned under good reason. Now, there's obviously varying degrees of quote-unquote crimes that you could consider that Palestinians are imprisoned for. However, given the fact that there's no real due process, given the fact that this is like completely slanted against the Palestinians because it's an occupying force utilizing a military court and throwing habeas corpus out the fucking door, and covering an incredibly broad array of things that they consider dangerous crimes of terrorism, from a child throwing a rock at a military checkpoint or a tank, all the way to like going on a fucking stabbing spree. It is very difficult to make assessments on whether or not these people deserve to be locked up indefinitely. As a matter of fact, if we're talking about it from my perspective, as far as like morality goes, I don't think anyone is deserving of being locked up indefinitely, of course. But considering that across the board, not a single Palestinian ever, especially if they're in the West Bank, not a single Palestinian ever gets like a regular court structure and regular due process, then all of those prisoners, no matter what their crime is, and it could be like a real crime, okay? It could be like an actual real crime, are still considered kidnapped, okay? Perfectly valid to say that these are people who are kidnapped. Because guess what? If you, for example, have a family member that was killed, okay? Someone killed a family member of yours. If you as a civilian, after the act is done, go up to that person, find them, hunt them down, and fucking apprehend them as a civilian, you would be technically kidnapping them, okay? There's a reason why we have laws. There's a reason why we have rules, right? There's a reason why we have due process, innocent until proven guilty. These are concepts that, you know, I know a lot of people don't truly believe in, but the reality is we must uphold them, okay? So the reality of the circumstance is that most Palestinians, if not almost all Palestinians, regardless of whether they've done a severe injustice, a severe crime or not, are technically still being unlawfully kept under indefinite detention. Now, of course, the overwhelming majority of Palestinians that are, especially like the minors and whatnot, are not actually under indefinite detention for good reason, right? It's just like rock throwing, or, and this is one of the worst aspects of this, this conversation, they're oftentimes accused of committing a crime that they haven't actually committed. And even if the Israeli courts find them not guilty of the crime that they were originally suspected of committing, the narrative builds up beyond it. Anne! Şu camı kapatın ne olur. Lütfen şu living room'daki camı kapatın. Okay, we're moving on. I can't believe we got here from talking about Israel-Palestine, specifically specifically talking about Israel-Palestine and the differences between like Palestinian hostages not being treated as hostages, even though they're technically kidnapped because they don't get due fucking process.
If we don't see a release in the next several hours, or if the release is not as satisfactory to the two sides as it could have been.
All right, Richard, I'll ask you to stand by. Let me go to NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba. What is the read right now from the White House, Monica?
Well, Lester, I can tell you a White House official confirms that this agreement has been reached to extend the truce between Israel and Hamas by at least these 2 days. This is something that the Biden administration had been working on actively, with the president making calls all weekend long. We know he spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday, and they specifically discussed this possibility, with the U.S. pushing for this extension.
Oh, my God. Hey, man, I'm pretty sure I agree with you on this, but isn't this whole they had cruel slavery and barbarous shit, so we got to invade what's used for a lot of colonial justification stuff? Oh, my God. Okay. The post hoc rationalizations of invading, like, the Aztecs or whatever, invading in Latin American countries before they were Latin American countries, and the Western colonialist arguments are not applicable in a circumstance where you are literally ending slavery and then not reinstituting it. Okay, the issue with what the Western colonialist powers did, the issue was they went in, they said that there were barbaric practices, okay, like cannibalism, for example, but that was a post hoc rationalization. They didn't give a fuck about that anyway. Okay, there was never a reason to care about that. They care about the land and they care about enslaving a population. And also, on top of that, they engaged in way worse systematized practices of slavery. Okay? That's the difference. There is a difference between good things and bad things. Okay? There is a difference. You can look at a situation and go, well, honestly, if we're going to be analyzing this evenly, yes, ending the wholesale institution of slavery and feudalism and then not re-implementing it in a different structure is a good thing, okay? Claiming that you are going in post hoc, by the way, not even like the direct rationalization, to tame the barbaric monsters that are doing cannibalism, so that you can tame them by what? Cutting their fucking hands, raping all the population, and basically extracting all of their natural resources, and then reinstituting caste structures and like brutal social hierarchies. You should kill yourself. Okay, thanks, man. That's it. This is what will cause me to do it. Check out this diagram of your stun lock. Hasan talking about kidnapped children of the West Bank. It's against international law. Law even applies in the USA. USA can be bad. China have some bad, but some good. Chatter brings up Tibet. Chatter defends Tibetan feudalism. Hasan gets back on the rails. Swoogity bird derails again. Back in derailment. I know. The only thing that will get me out of this is the top of the hour ad break, which comes at the top of the hour every hour. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free. Literally just Google what King Leopold II did in Congo. Exactly. There's a reason why nobody wants to compare it to the abolition of slavery and the Civil War, because that is a much better comparison that you can make, but people don't want to make that comparison because that's a good comparison that favors the Chinese side technically, because it's truthful. So everybody always immediately goes, well, what if it was totally different and they were like colonial subjects themselves? What if the Chinese form of governance in Tibet also reinstituted slavery, even though it didn't? Sakura Gore, thank you for the 10 gifted subs. Allowing 10 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. The Raging Hoppa, thank you for the 10 gifted subs. All right, let's continue.
With the hopes of getting more hostages released. Of course, that first American, the dual is.
Thank you, the man from the ether, for the 10 gifted subs. Hellbender for the 5 gifted subs. The Raging Hopper for the 10 gifted subs as well.
Israeli-American citizen released yesterday. That 4-year-old girl, Abigail Adan, who turned 4 in captivity on Friday after her parents were murdered by Hamas, and she was taken hostage for 50 days before being released yesterday back to some of her family members in Israel. That is the first American to be released and returned. It is unclear whether there will be more Americans released on a potential list today. That is something the White House is still tracking very closely, monitoring to see if it will be possible. But now, given this extension, they will likely also point to the fact that that could now happen tomorrow or in the coming days. But they have talked about this in such a fluid and active manner. They don't want to get ahead of any of these very fragile negotiations because they don't want to derail anything, because the slightest hiccup can do that before getting back on track. But the president said very clearly yesterday that he will not rest until all of the hostages can be released, including, again, something like 9 more Americans potentially. But there are questions, Lester, about whether all of those Americans are being held by Hamas or potentially by other groups and how that could work to release them. But we know behind the scenes here, White House officials have been a very active part of the negotiations. They continue really hour by hour to be a part of these discussions to see how long this extension can go. The U.S. hope is that it can continue beyond the 2 days.
Members of my distant family were kidnapped by Hamas were released this weekend. I'm so happy. Congratulations, Chatter. I'm glad that you're distant.
But they really have told me they're going to take this one day at a time.
Thanks for watching.
So there is like some misinfo going around. Like, listen, guys.